Good evening, and welcome to Young Health Tonight, where research meets real life. I'm Stephen Cordero, your anchor. Tonight, we examine one of the most debated topics in American education and public health. Does the type of sex education teens receive actually impact sexual behavior and teen pregnancy rates? Our report focused on a study conducted by Pamela Kohler, Lisa Manhart, and William Lafferty from the University of Washington, published in the Journal of Adolescent Health. The research compares abstinence-only education and comprehensive sex education to determine which approach is more effective in reducing teen pregnancy and sexual behavior. In the United States, sex education programs generally fall into two main categories. One being abstinence-only education that teaches sexual activity should be delayed until marriage and often does not provide detailed instruction about contraception, and comprehensive sex education, which on the other hand includes abstinence as the safest option, but also provides medically accurate information about birth control methods and condoms used to prevent pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. The effectiveness of these approaches have been slightly controversial, especially as federal funding has increased supporting abstinence-only programs. In their study, Kohler and her colleagues analyzed data from 1,719 never-married heterosexual adolescents between the ages of 15 and 19 who participated in the National Survey of Family Growth. Participants were grouped into three categories: those who received no formal sex education, those who received abstinence-only education, and those who received comprehensive sex education. The researchers examined three main outcomes: whether teens had ever engaged in vaginal intercourse, whether they experienced a teen pregnancy, and whether they were diagnosed with a sexually transmitted disease. They used statistical modeling to control for factors like age, race, income, and family structure. The results show that adolescents who received comprehensive sex education were significantly less likely to report teen pregnancy compared to those who received no sex education at all. Abstinence-only education, however, did not significantly reduce the likelihood of sexual activity or teen pregnancy. Importantly, the study also found that teaching about contraception did not increase sexual activity among adolescents. In other words, providing teens with information about birth control did not encourage them to have sex. To further understand these findings, we examine additional research by Douglas Kirby, a leading expert in adolescent sexual health. In his comprehensive research review, Emerging Answers 2007, Kirby analyzed over 100 evaluations of sex education programs across the United States. Kirby's review examined which programs actually changed teen behavior. Kirby's reviews examined which programs actually change teen behavior. He found that comprehensive sex education programs often delay the initiation of sexual activity, reduce the number of sexual partners, and increase contraceptive use among sexually active teens. In contrast, abstinence-only programs show little consistent evidence of long-term behavioral impact. Most notably, Kirby also found no evidence that teaching about contraception increases sexual activity. Instead, accurate information appeared to promote safer decision-making. When we compare both studies, a clear pattern emerges. Kohler's population-level analysis found lower teen pregnancy rates among adolescents who received comprehensive sex education. Kirby's large-scale reviews found that comprehensive programs improve protective behaviors without increasing sexual activity. Together, these studies suggest that providing adolescents with both abstinence messaging and medically accurate information about contraception may better equip them to make informed decisions. In conclusion, current research indicates that comprehensive sex education does not promote sexual activity, but may significantly reduce the risk of teen pregnancy. While abstinence remains an important message, evidence suggests that combining abstinence education with practical knowledge about contraception provides adolescents with stronger tools for protecting their health. As debate about sexual education policies continue about the country, these findings raise important questions about whether educational approaches best serve young people. But research findings are only part of the story. How does the community feel about what teens should be taught in schools? To find out, we go live to our field reporter who spoke with community members to hear their perspectives on sex education in America.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about being sexually active, sexual education, and being abstinent. Answer these questions to the best of your abilities. Don't be nervous to answer any of the questions. Just a few brief questions and give me good, in-depth answers.
Okay.
So the first question is, what have you learned about sexual education in school so far?
I'm gonna be honest. Honestly, I don't think we ever had a discussion in school. But so far, from my understanding, we learned using protection and diseases.
Okay, so have you heard about abstinence? If so, what does it mean to you?
Yes, I've heard of abstinence. Abstinence to what does it mean to me is not being sexually active or haven't done anything sexually at all.
Okay. Okay. So, how old are you?
17.
So, at what age do you think that teens should start learning about their sexual education and why?
Once they start hitting puberty, I want to say. I know it may sound young, but I feel like kids can be experienced, and I feel like they should know certain stuff as they get older. But I feel like they should know at a young age. Just because.
Okay. My next question is, do teens feel pressured to become sexually active? If so, why?
I want to say yes for some, but why? Because I feel like if one person is comfortable with doing it, they would want to pressure that other person that may be not comfortable with doing it and may not understand that uncomfortable person. But people think differently, and I feel like certain some people may want more or want or may seem like they need it, but I feel like because of that, they will want to pressure another person. And yeah.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm back again with another interview, and yeah, state your name.
Hi, I'm Matthew Stead.
Okay, so the first question is, what are your overall thoughts on teaching sexual education in public schools?
I think certain states have one way of thinking about it, and then some states have another way of thinking about it. Without giving too much away, I think that teaching about it is important to a certain extent, but there's also certain ways to talk about it as well. Like abstinence does work, but also in the event that abstinence isn't there or isn't available as an option, I do think that teaching about proper sex education or proper protection is important.
What challenges do you think teens face when trying to practice abstinence?
I would definitely say, I mean, peer pressure is definitely a thing, and also the dark side of things, right? Sometimes you might, as a person, you might fall into a situation where you might be in a situation where this person does some sort of sexual harassment or sexual activity with you that you weren't expecting, and that can definitely lead to breaking abstinence as well. And that's not your choice; that was you were kind of forced to. So I would say peer pressure and just the fact that there's some people in the world that are like have an evil heart and could make that happen.
Okay. What concerns do you think parents typically have about sexual education in schools?
I think when it comes to parents, some like it depends who your parent is, right? So if you have a parent that's very like pro, yes, you should learn about it. Let me know what's being learned about in school, and we can kind of talk about it more at home. But then there's also other parents that feel like, no, that conversation should only be had with the parents only. And it kind of opens, I don't want to say it opens up a can of worms, but when you leave it up to just the parents, not every parent is going to give the same education that everyone deserves if it's in a public education setting. If you have a parent that chose to get married at an earlier age or only had one instance of love, I guess, and then just got married really early in life, their sexual education is still going to be minimal compared to what public education can at least explain. Like, for instance, when I was in high school, we did have a health class that went through as a unit certain things about, STDs and things like that. But a parent wouldn't spend time talking about STDs. They would just say, like, hey, just don't have, like, some parents would just say, hey, don't have sex. Not, hey, here's protection. Let's actually talk about how to deal with certain stressors.
Jorge here. I am joined with Ethan. You mind if I ask you a couple questions for your opinion on sexual education, Ethan?
Of course, sure.
How do you think sex education should be taught in schools?
I don't think that it should be taught in schools. I think it should be up to the parent to teach the children what they need to know.
What do you think about abstinence versus comprehensive sex education?
I think that abstinent sex is stupid because some people aren't going to get married. I might not get married, but sex is sex. Kids are going to do it. I think it's more important that they know about sex so that they are prepared for it.
If you could change one thing about sex education, what would it be?
Free condoms from school. Do you know how hard it is to get condoms as like a young high schooler, young middle schooler? When you're broke, it's expensive, gang, to buy so many weeks and weeks of them. How you gonna get that money, bro? I don't got a job. What?
All right, that's all the questions. I appreciate it very much. You have a nice day. All right. Today I'm joined with
Brandon.
All right, Brandon, you mind if I ask you some questions today?
Of course.
How do you think sexual education should be taught in schools?
I think they should go over more information and kind of get people a little more knowledgeable, I guess. Give them better tools and resources when they're talking about it. That way they're not just shown some random video and then kind of to move on with whatever they're doing.
Yeah. What do you think about comprehensive sex education? So, like, basically knowing everything about sex, like being prepared for it.
I think it leads to much better situations than just being abstinent. Of course, that is the safest thing you can do. But kind of knowing what's going on and knowing the stuff, even if you're going to stay abstinent, you should know and should be well informed.
Which one do you think is better for teens that'll prepare them for life?
Both, technically. I think you should chill out. Don't have a kid by accident. It's a terrible life choice. And then, being very well informed and knowing everything helps you avoid that. Because in reality, it's not so much when you're older that it's the issue. It's when you're young and, it could create a hard time for you.
Yep. And do you think students are leaving schools without a proper education about sex?
No. No, I do not.
Why not?
I feel like there's not enough put into the process. Like before, more materials, more explanations for things. A lot of times, like, you'll be told just because or no, and you're not really given reasons. And a lot of the time people need to hear, like, yeah, you don't do this because of this, and this causes this. This is the real reason. This is why you don't want this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Last question. If you could change one thing about sexual education, what would it be?
More comprehensive. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It's the same thing. Providing those resources and giving them the information they need for everybody. Even it's more than just teenagers also. Like, even as you get older, new things are always coming out. Mm-hmm. People are always, like, learning things.
That's it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Gotcha.
That's it.